All right, so here we're going to continue with chapter 2. If you were here yesterday, I think you got a chance to go over some of this stuff. Maybe it made sense, maybe it didn't. In either case, we're basically just going over that same content today. And so here in this first part of class, we're going to focus on mainly two things: population versus sample. What do those words mean? And categorical versus quantitative variables. So basically, this whole chapter 2, is just talking about data. So like information we're collecting. And this whole chapter, again, is basically just talking about the who, what, when, where, why, and how of that data. So who are we collecting data on? What is the data we're collecting? When did we collect it? Where did we collect it? Why and how? And so these things here, population versus sample, categorical versus quantitative, are just kind of, they tie into these things. This is the main focus. So first part of class, we'll focus basically on these two things. And then second part, we'll tie it into we'll call them the 6 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, how. So first, let's focus on population and sample. Let's just start by reading these definitions. These terms may take a little bit to click exactly what we're talking about. So kind of be patient with it. Population, it says all the cases we wish we knew about. Sample, it says the cases we actually examine in seeking to understand the much larger population. So for instance, say we want to learn, we want to find out what's the best cup of coffee in the world. What is the best cup of coffee? Now, we're probably not going to be able to go around and taste every single cup of coffee. So maybe we just go in our city, we go around Phoenix, and let's say over a couple months, we try 100 different cups of coffee. So we go to 100 different coffee shops, try their coffee, and use that to make our judgment. So population, all the cases we wish we knew about, we wish we knew about every single coffee in the world, every cup of coffee, every coffee shop, because we want to know what the absolute best coffee in the world is. That means we want to know about every single coffee shop in the world. But it may not be feasible or practical to go taste every single cup of coffee in the world. So that's where our sample comes in. The sample are the cases we actually study. And we were only able to try 100 cups here in Phoenix. So that's our sample. Now, maybe, and so that's basically all there is to it. Every coffee shop in the world would be our population. The 100 coffee shops we try here in Phoenix would be our sample. And maybe this isn't a good study. Maybe Phoenix doesn't have good coffee. Maybe there are much better places to get coffee. So our experiment that we set up isn't very effective. That could be. So let's focus on those and we'll come back to the categorical versus quantitative. And so here, this is a snippet from the textbook. This is just starting to talk about the 6 W's. This is talking about who, and it turns out that population and sample tie into the who. We'll focus more on that later. For now, let's just look at some examples like this. So go ahead and read this over. Pause for a second. In March 2007, Consumer Reports published an evaluation of large screen, high definition TV sets. The magazine purchased and tested 98 different models from a variety of manufacturers. What are the population of interest, the sample, and the who of this study? So something we'll just mention now is that who and sample are just the same thing. The who is what we actually collect data about, or who we collect data about, which is the sample. So basically, we're just saying what's the population, what's the sample. So sample, I think, is a good place to start. Let's start by saying our sample. Remember, a sample, again, is just the group or the thing we actually collect data on. And we're actually collecting data on these 98 different models. The 98 different HDTV models. The population, I don't think they make it very clear here, so we'll have to use a little bit of our own judgment. Let's see, it says they publish an evaluation of large high-screen or high-definition television sets, and it doesn't really say what they want to know about, but it's kind of implied that they would want to find out the best HDTV. So the population, in this case, we'd probably say the best answer would be all HDTVs. They want to know about all HDTVs to find the best one. And so they study the 98 different HDTV models. And again, the sample is also our who. Let's look at one more of these. We'll read this one together. The marketing company J.D. Power and Associates surveys consumers to learn about buyer behavior and customer satisfaction for many products worldwide. For example, J.D. Power's automotive performance, execution, and layout studies examine what people like about their car's performance and design. The 2008 Japan Mini Car Appeal Study looked at 38 different mini car models from 7 manufacturers. J.D. Power based this report on responses from 4,255 people who had recently purchased new mini cars. So a lot more information in this one. And these types of problems, we can come across a lot of extraneous information, meaning information that's not really necessary for us. So describe the population of interest. So population of interest is everyone we want to know about, or everything we want to know about. So let's see, it says, this study examined what people like about their car's performance and design. The 2008 Japan Mini Car Appeal Study looked at 38 different mini car models. And so this one, again, it doesn't make very explicit what the population of interest is, like who we want to learn about. But again, with these companies that are studying like consumer reporting companies that want to say provide information on cars or TVs, whatever it is, they're probably wanting to know about every single one of those things. In this case, though, it also does say that it was a Japan mini car appeal study. So in this case, they probably they don't care about every single car. It looks like they're just concerned with Japan mini cars. So population, we can say something just like that. Japan mini cars. And so you'll probably start to notice that in statistics, sometimes, or a good deal of the time, you may have to use your judgment, and answers may vary a little bit from person to person. So what was the sample? What did they actually collect data on? Well, they collected data on these 38 mini car models. So sample, 38 mini car models. And also we want to be as descriptive as possible here. We can also add that they're from 7 manufacturers. From 7 manufacturers. And then the who of the study, again, who is just the same thing as sample. So that'd be our answer there. So let's come back to that. Let's jump around. And we have some from the classwork yesterday, but let's come up with our own. Let's say come up with it. We'll say Javier wants to learn about dogs. And he wants to find out what the absolute favorite food of dogs is. And so in order to find this out, he goes to 10 of his friends who have dogs. And he asked them their dog's favorite food. We're going to be asking, what is the population? What is the sample? So again, the situation, Javier, he wants to find out what the favorite food of dogs is. And so in order to gather information on this, he goes to 10 friends who have dogs and asks what their dog's favorite food is. So what is our population? What is our sample? Here, population would be all dogs. He wants to know the favorite food of dogs. So he's interested in knowing about all dogs. Sample. He studies or he gathers information from dogs owned by his 10 friends, something like that. So population, who do we want to know about? Sample, who do we actually collect information on? So before we move on, let's try a practice problem. So in this one, we'll say that Jessica wants to know what percentage of people in Arizona have blue eyes. So that's what she's interested in finding out. And in order to gather information to answer her question, she collects data on 2,500 people from Phoenix and Tucson. And you're going to be saying, what is the population of interest and what is the sample? So again, Jessica wants to know what percentage of people in Arizona have blue eyes. And so she collects data on 2,500 people from Phoenix and Tucson. So go ahead and pause the video and try this out. All right, now let's have a look at this together. What percent of people in Arizona have blue eyes was the question. So first we want to say, what is the population? Or you can start with a sample. That's maybe even easier most of the time. So let's actually start there. Sample, who do we actually collect data on? And this scenario made it very clear. It says she collects data on 2,500 people And again, our answer can be even better than this, and we want it to be to add a little more information because it provides more information. Not just any 2,500 people, it's 2,500 people from Phoenix and Tucson. And the population, careful on this one, this one's not all people. This is all people in Arizona. So that's population and sample. Now, categorical and quantitative variables. And what you write here, or what we write here, you might want to have down in your notes. Quantitative. Let me spell that out more clearly so you can write it down. Quantitative. So categorical quantitative variables. So we'll just start off with more just definitions, and then we'll explain a little more. So for quantitative variables, so really the type of situation you'll come across here is you'll have some variable and you'll want to say whether it's categorical or quantitative. And basically the question you ask yourself is, are the values numbers with units? And this probably makes no sense yet, but we'll try to bring it full circle. So you come across a variable. So a variable is referring to like something some question you're asking. So like, let's say we're surveying our classmates and we're collecting several pieces of information. Let's say hair color, height, eye color, and we'll just leave it there for now. So these we would call variables. Why are they variables? Because these can have different values depending on who we're talking about. So let's say student A has black hair, brown eyes, and is 5'6". For the next student, those variables could have different values, and that's what a variable is. It's something that can have different values. That's one way of thinking of it. So basically, to go back to our definition, quantitative variables are basically numbers with units. And just to keep it simple, we'll just say categorical variables are everything else. Quantitative variables, numbers with units. Categorical variables, everything else. So let's try to label these variables we have here. Again, the question we ask ourselves for each one is, are the values numbers with units? And what do we mean by values? That just means what could the variable be? Like if we're talking about one of our classmates, what are the different hair colors they could have? Like brown, black, blue, pink, who knows? So are those different values numbers with units? No, we said words, we said different colors. So because it's not numbers with units, this one would be categorical. We'll just put a C to save space. How about height? Are the values of height numbers with units? And we said an example height would be like 5'6". 4'11". So these are numbers with units. We have numbers, inches and feet are units. So height would be quantitative. And eye color, what are the values for this variable? Will that be like brown, blue, green, black, so on? Or maybe, I don't know if black is an eye color, but anyways, I think you get the point. So not numbers with units. So categorical for eye color. This piece of the definition with units is important. Because let's say also another variable we measured was how they rate math class on a scale from 1 to 10. So say we have a student over here, brown hair, 5 feet, and so on, and they rate math class a 6. Now here you'd say, are the values for this numbers with units? Well, it is a number, but it doesn't have units. So this one, rating something like this, would be categorical, not quantitative, even though it's a number. So it has to have units to be quantitative. So let's look at an example from yesterday. Some motion pictures are profitable and others are not. Understandably, the movie industry would like to know what makes a movie successful. Data from 120 first-run movies released in 2005 suggest that the longer movies actually make less profit. So this one's not really talking about, this one might not be from the right section actually. Oh, right, here's where we want to be. Okay, so a medical researcher measures the increase in heart rate of patients under stress. What kind of variable is this researcher studying? So what do you think? What kind of variable is this going to be, quantitative or categorical? This is one you probably would have seen yesterday, this question. So what's the information they're collecting? Heart rate of patients. Heart rate, maybe you're not too familiar with heart rate, but you'd have like different numbers of beats per minute. And I don't know that much about heart rate either, but let's say I think like 150 is like a potential number. And let's think, does it have units? It would. If you know, it's usually measured in beats per minute. How many times does your heart beat per minute? It's 150 BPM, or maybe 125 BPM, and so on. So these are potential values we're saying of our variable. Are these numbers with units? We got a number, we got units, so it is quantitative. A pharmaceutical company conducts an experiment in which the subject takes 100 milligrams of a substance orally. The researchers measure how many minutes it takes for half of the substance to exit the bloodstream. What kind of variable is the company studying? So what is the thing they're collecting information on? It says they measure, what are they measuring? How many minutes it takes for something to happen. So they're measuring a number of minutes. So is it going to be 2 minutes, 11.5 minutes, and so on. So we're saying these could be potential values of our variable. Are these numbers with units? That's our question again every single time. We do have numbers, we do have units. So again, this would be quantitative. So let's try a practice to wrap up this section. And we'll do two different ones. Or let's actually maybe say 3. So for the first scenario, we'll say money made at a lemonade stand. So you could say the scenario is something like that several groups were trying to raise money for their school. And so it was recorded how much money each of them made at their lemonade stand, something like that. Would that be a categorical variable or quantitative? Then we'll say we surveyed our relatives on their favorite color. Is that categorical or quantitative? And then lastly, say that a teacher at the end of the quarter asks students to rate how much they learned on a scale from 1 to 5. So go ahead and try these, labeling each one categorical or quantitative. And let's pause the video. All right, now let's have a look at these together. First one, money made at a lemonade stand. So we could imagine maybe one group of people makes, we'll just say like in a given day, but that's not too important. We'll say one group makes $55, one group makes $35.75, and so on. And then so our question every single time is, are we talking about numbers with units? We have numbers, we have units, and so this is quantitative for A. Dollars are units. So basically anything that describes your number are units. Like pounds, ounces, inches, years, months, days, anything that goes with your number to describe it, basically. Letter B, favorite color of our relatives. Well, somebody might answer orange, somebody may answer yellow, and so on. Are these numbers with units? No, they're not. So this would be categorical. And then C, students rate how much they learned at the end of a class on a scale from 1 to 5. So maybe one student says they didn't learn really anything. Another student says they learned a good amount, set of 4. Are these numbers with units? No, they're not. There's no number that's, or no word that's going with these numbers to explain them. They're just basically numbers that represent like ratings. So these ones, no units, so categorical. So at this point, go ahead and move on to classwork part 2A, and then you'll resume the second part of this lecture later.